believe.
Look at us now, tip to
Ooh, Jesus.
Start the morning combat.
Do you want a margarita? Yes! My God!
to us, doing what we love. It's time to bang.
Just three hoes. That's what's going on today here on Morning Combat. Welcome, everyone, on a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa edition, Happy Holidays edition. It is the hostess with the leastess. And I sound like I've been smoking cigarettes for 50 years straight. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Morning Combat here on this 23rd of December, 2024. As I mentioned, a Christmas edition, as Christmas Eve day tomorrow, and of course the big day with Papa Noel on Wednesday. But we wanted to get you ready for that. And of course, by doing so, we're going to review everything that happened over the weekend, answer some of your questions, and look at BC's feces. My name is Luke Thomas. I am, of course, joining you from the capital of Estados Unidos, joined by my friend and hetero life mate, Brian Campbell. Hi, Brian Campbell. How are you?
Good luck. I'm doing great, Luke. I'm in a tight, ugly, medium Christmas sweater. I'm fired up for the holidays. And if you ask me what donut might best signify the success Usyk had on Saturday and what type of show we're going to have today, I definitely go with glaze, if you know what I mean, Luke, because a hero has come along. Okay. He's here. He's conquered. He's here. He's here. Anyway, shout out to the MK viewers out there, especially David Appleton, because you know what, Luke? Single dads need love too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they sure do. They're lonely and probably have burners on Twitter where they say racist and sexist things. You know what I'm saying?
Not Appy, not that guy. Okay, not that guy.
Yeah, he just says it with his whole chest and, you know, normal identity. There's no need to conceal it. I hope everyone's doing well. BC, how are you feeling after the weekend and for the 2 days ahead? Is it Christmas is a big deal in your family or no?
Yes, Christmas is a big deal. It's the favorite holiday of everyone in my house but myself, because, you know, I'm a big Thanksgiving guy, Luke, big on that tea, on that high tea, if you know what I'm saying. But I'm very happy to be home. Everyone's healthy. Everybody's happy. This is all you can ask for, Luke. We talked about this. I don't need any gifts. I've got 3 big gifts in my wife and kids and 5 more in my 3 cats and dogs, a roof over my head. The bills are paid for now, Luke. Let's just sit back and enjoy life, right? I mean, come on. Who could say it any better than I just did, right?
Literally anyone who speaks the English language, but I do take the sentiment seriously, and I'm glad to hear that. Fun weekend. Usyk getting the job done. That'll be the majority of what we discussed today, but there were some smaller, although very important MMA news and notes, which we'll get to a little bit later. BC, give me a number rating, 1 being the worst fight ever, 10 being the best fight ever. I mean, that's not quite right. 1 being, you know, not at all enjoyable, 10 being most enjoyable. I think it's a better way to put that. What would you give Usyk Fury 2?
I give it a 9. I give it a solid 9.
That's a little strong.
Strong, really? I don't agree with everyone who thought it was better than the first fight and thought it might be your fight of the year. I think we also have to bring up, obviously, Ortiz versus Boachuk and Fury versus Usyk 1, which I think had a little bit more in terms of trading big pockets of action and momentum. But Saturday's fight was a 9 for me, Luke, because the pace was outrageous. The skill and constant adjustments of both was elite. This is what I want out of elite heavyweight boxing at the peak of this Renaissance era that we've been in over the last 9 years. I'm a very, very happy man on this Monday morning.
I think it's a little strong, but we'll talk about some of the differences we might have.
What would you give it, Luke? A solid 6.5, and you know what I mean? Give me a hot dog and a Hummer. There you go. All right.
7.5, something like that.
Were you not entertained? Seriously, Thomas, what's going on here?
I was entertained for sure. No, I was entertained for sure. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Maybe 8 at the highest, but
okay.
This one, we talked about it last week. The pre-fight drama was not there, which is fine. There was good reasons for that. But then the fight itself, like, it was a little bit of drama early, but then not really. Once Usyk got cooking, he just kind of left Fury behind him, not so much in the dust. And it just was like one guy was ahead of the other guy in the race, and there was never really any change. It just kind of kept that the whole time.
I don't know about that.
It's impressive as hell, but
that each round was ultra competitive. It was more competitive in the first fight, which had more rounds of not one-sided dominance, but I thought there were clearer rounds in the first fight. Even though I scored the second fight wider than the first, I thought most of those 12 rounds felt like you had to really look at the fine detail to pick out who you thought had come up and won that one.
So yes and no. I mean, we'll talk about this in just a second, but I guess my basic read would be, because I went back and I watched it actually a couple times in preparation for today, and I think the lesson that I kind of came out with this, I had a little bit of a feeling with this on Saturday, but I definitely feel stronger about it now, is that Fury did well enough to avoid the worst of what Usyk did to him last time. There were definitely things he was able to tighten up, but it actually made his offense worse. And if you look at his numbers, he did have higher power punch as a share of his overall offense and then what he was able to land. But in general, his numbers were down across the board. Not entirely, but mostly. And again, that's credit to Usyk, but I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. It's like one guy, not quite, but once he got out to a lead, took a few rounds to get out there. Once he got out to a lead, he, for the most part, really never looked back. And that makes it, to me, a little bit. The first fight had all kinds of drama, and this one was just kind of like, I'm better than you.
True,
and
but it was very high skill. Look, I didn't think of it until Usyk said it after the fight, and he's right. This mirrored the two Michael Spinks, Larry Holmes fights from the mid 1980s, where it was different because Spinks moved up directly from light heavyweight to heavyweight, where Usyk came up from cruiser. But it was the smaller, slightly more skilled man, barely, in two classic fights. Now, look, I think this series, Usyk Fury, way more exciting than the two Holmes Spinks fights, but it was very similar in that it was very close. Both had arguments for victory. The scoring was tight, and in some cases in both directions. I think Usyk won the second one visibly clearer, but I loved it, man. I loved it. I love the high level skill. I love Luke, when do you see heavyweight title fights at that pace? Come on, put a little bit more love in your heart and pour it over that fight.
We're also talking about we're also talking about one of the best heavyweights basically ever. All right, so with that in mind, let's set this up. Thumbs up if you're watching. Hit subscribe if you haven't. We have a Gmail you can reach, morningcombat@gmail.com. Then, of course, you can see the socials. He had them up there. I apologize. I got the order of it wrong. Of course, we're on TikTok and YouTubes and everything else. You can go and find everything that you need there. And, yeah, we have a lot to get to today. So a lot of Usyk Fury 2 breakdown, some MMA stuff. We'll get to some of your questions.
I have one question for you that I think is probably on the minds of most people, if you're willing to entertain it before we get into the heart of this show.
Last one. Let's do it.
Would you make your family delay opening their presents on Christmas morning so that you could Joseph A. Bank your first floor restroom? I mean, probably, right?
I wouldn't make the Tukester wait, but anybody else has got to wait. Okay, I can tell you that very clearly. Also, as I told you off air, despite the best efforts of our modern day robber baron oligarchs, the land was administratively transferred between the federal government and DC to turn 177 acres of urban blight into something useful at no taxpayer expense to the federal government. So
yeah, that's not a regional story, Luke. That's a life story right there. Score one for the people of DC. Score one for the humans, by the way, after that AI judge only pissed Tyson Fury off on Saturday. And
by the way, so I'm talking to those folks behind that company this week. We're trying to work out a time. I'm trying to figure it out. I will say this. They had two 10-10s. Well, you know what? We'll talk about this later. So let's get this going. Topic number one, let's just fire it off. Of course, we've set the table here already. The rematch took place between Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury, and Oleksandr Usyk getting, BC, the unanimous decision nod, which I think nobody really had any issue with. All three judges having it 116 to 112. I'm going to ask you for what your score is in just a second for folks who may not have seen it. But I guess two pieces on top of that I want to know. Biggest differences between this fight and the first fight, because actually, just before we talk about what it all means, I just want to talk about the fight itself and what we observed. And then more importantly, score, differences in fight. And then let's add on to that what you took away from Usyk's performance to be even more clear-cut this time.
Sure. My score live was 9 rounds to 3, 118 to, 117 to 111 in favor of Oleksandr Usyk. And I get what you're saying. You just told me that fight was more competitive than the first one. How could you score it 9-3? Look, this is the subjective nature of the 10-point must system. The rounds were more competitive, but ultimately overall, I routinely favored the pace, the craft, and don't forget this, the defense of Oleksandr Usyk again. I did hear, especially during my live reaction Saturday night, Alan W., a lot of, noted MK fans saying, hey, man, I agree with some of those people who thought Fury could have won it. Those rounds are closer than you said. Look, upon rewatch, I gave Fury every single benefit of the doubt. I still scored it like the three judges had it, 116, 112, 8 rounds to 4. So upon rewatch, I gave Fury one more round. That doesn't mean that he wasn't in every round. That doesn't mean that there wasn't 7 or 8 rounds where you really had to fine-tune pick. But something has to separate them. And I just want to remind people, saying one guy won 9-3, it doesn't mean it was a shutout. You don't get bonus points for being close. They're 12 individual fights, so that's how it was scored. What was the difference between the first 2 fights? For me, it was this. Fury, despite coming in at 281 pounds, a career high, I actually thought he did find the perfect balance physically between leaving no stone unturned in the training camp, putting forth the best possible effort at age 36 to come out and know that he's going to have to fight 12 hard rounds at a high pace, while also being bigger, being more durable, in theory, being bigger and having more power to his punches, although that power didn't really show up in the rematch. So I thought that you had a better Fury than the first fight. But the difference here in this case was I thought Usyk was also even better, particularly not just taking away the effectiveness of Fury's jab for the second straight fight, even though that British heavy announce team on DAZN, I thought was overly playing the effects of both Fury's jab and really his punching in general. I saw an Usyk who, if you look at what were the things Fury did well in the first fight, one of those was body shots. One of those was trying to slow down the smaller, quicker fighter. And what you had here in Usyk was turning the tables on Fury, attacking the body, establishing such a high, insane pace, like the first fight, but almost even faster. And look, Usyk's defense has to be on point to operate at the distance behind that high guard that he does. And it was at this point. So the difference was, I thought Usyk was even craftier. He slowed Fury down by going to the body. He landed the better power shots inside. And even though you can't always use the CompuBox numbers as a definitive judgment in terms of who won, in this case, I think they only elevate the idea that these were close rounds, that Usyk did that much more. He landed more punches. He landed 42, nearly 43% of his total punches in general, which is absurd. 50% of his power shots, which is absurd for a fight this close at this pace. So what my biggest takeaway was, and how that plays into how we should frame Usyk, is he is definitively the best heavyweight of this era. He was already trending toward becoming an all-time great when you consider the Olympic success, the 2 undisputed titles in separate divisions, and the fact that he just kept rising, facing one great fighter after another in his last 5 fights at heavyweight, by the way. 2 wins over Fury, 2 wins over Joshua, and a knockout of Dubois says it all. But we are talking about one of the most masterfully skilled, pure boxing heavyweights that this division has seen, literally since Muhammad Ali. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily saying Usyk's better than Lennox Lewis or Evander Holyfield. I'm just saying the pure skill, the daring nature, the chin. This was, in as close a fight as you can have visually, a master class by Usyk, who I think systematically took away all of the things Fury does well, including that counter right uppercut, which had a brief little window of success until Usyk took it away again. Is there a problem? Usyk's got the answer. And I think that's why you saw a frustrated Fury exit the ring. I think that's why you saw frustrated Joshua after the second Usyk fight. These guys come in with great intentions, but this great fighter who was giving up, Luke, 6 inches in height, 8 inches in reach, and 55 pounds, not just to a larger stiff, but a larger skilled heavyweight who has been dominating this division. And what did Usyk do? Exactly what he's done his whole career. Be the greater class guy and come out with his arms raised.
Long Island Luke, if we can put the stats on the screen for the jabber stats. I don't have the CompuBox stats here, but these are the jabber stats. You could take it for what they're worth. Just focus more on the left side of your screen here. You can see punches landed. Usyk was able to be busier. Punches with high impact. I'm not sure exactly how they defined it, but I think your eyes would tell you that this was, probably close to accurate, more than more than quadruple in terms of what Tyson Fury had. So they, I know CompuBox counts power punches, but in terms of the ones that actually have big, noteworthy impact, Usyk, according to Jabber anyway, had a lot more going. Threw a little bit less. Fury was busier in certain respects. They were about equal with pressure, although I disagree with how that's measured. And then aggression, the slight lean there again for Usyk, and of course you can see landed and over time and on the right side, the sort of a plotting graph over the course of the 12 rounds. Thank you, Long Island Luke. I appreciate that. BC, I generally share your assessment. I want to look at the judges' scorecards here in just a second, but if I may, I think you're basically right on. My biggest takeaway in real time, which again, when I watched the subsequent review, was that there was no big round 9 for Usyk. There was no big breakthrough moment that really changed the tenor of that fight. I mean, it had been building a little bit towards the round 9 in the first fight where he rocked Tyson Fury, but this one was different. He got off to a quick start right away. We were wondering, is this going to be round 13 or is this going to be round 1 of a new one? And really it was, to me, more like round 13, where Fury was able to make some meaningful adjustments to avoid the worst of what Usyk could do to him. That is true, but Usyk was able to build off of everything he learned from Fury the first time, so that even with a Fury making some meaningful adjustments about ring generalship, spatial positioning, what shots to throw, the uppercut to the body, shot selection, it just didn't really matter. Every adjustment that Fury was able to come up with, Usyk was able to come up with a subsequent adjustment. And BC, perhaps my favorite one of the entire fight that you saw was in the later rounds, where what did we discuss in the first fight that was a big thing that potentially could change was how much was Fury going to be on the front foot versus the back foot. And there was a difference this time, right? Sure. There was a little bit more of that, definitely in favor of Tyson Fury. Again, he tightened up some things that I think were low-hanging fruit that he was able to do.
He had better stamina, Luke. You got to say that too. He had better stamina than the first fight. He
had better stamina, although that extra weight, I don't really know what it did for him in the end. I don't think it meaningfully helped him. I really think maybe there was a little bit it did for him early. I don't think it serviced him down the line. But the thing I wanted to spotlight was you saw Tyson was big on shoulder rolling, right? He rolls and then he leans and that kind of a thing. And then he often bring his feet with him, and he ended up surrendering space the first time in the first fight. That didn't really happen this time. In fact, in some of the later rounds, you had Fury bringing his hands up, something that Usyk is more common to do. And there's trade-offs to both styles. One of the things that you saw Usyk doing is when Fury stopped moving his head, or at least just kind of kept less of a keep away game and brought his hands up, Usyk began to touch, and then find big shots around it, occupying his guard, and then putting more power punch combinations together, having a much more demonstrative effect. You add on top of that up, down game he plays, where he's pendulum stepping, he's changing levels, he is feinting inside, he is pulling his head inside to bait the jab, then he's stepping outside and then coming over with elite outside foot positioning. Like, he took all the things that worked the first time, adjusted on the fly the second time, and got to work quicker this time. And Fury was basically, not entirely the whole way, BC, but was basically playing catch-up the entire time. And every time he tried a little turn of the screw to get ahead, Fury got ahead of that. Usyk got ahead of that very, very quickly, ultimately in the end. How do you beat a guy where even if you prepare differently, and to your point, BC, you are in shape and maybe a little bit bigger this time for whatever calculation they were trying to make? And some of that stuff works, but the point is even if that stuff works, the other guy can quickly come up with some kind of an implementable adjustment that has an immediate and meaningful effect. I don't know how anybody, at least of this generation, of this ability, is supposed to beat a guy like that. That is an unenviable task, if ever there was one. And BC, let me pitch this back to you, if I may, with this thought. There are meaningful differences between their careers and their styles. But surely, for the folks who may have missed him, we were there. We saw a lot of his fights in his prime. If you didn't collect some rounds, the first 6 of them against Mayweather, it was fucking hopeless for you on the back 6. Usyk is just like that. He gets stronger as the fight wears on, even for a Fury who was doing his level best to try and maintain pace.
Yeah, one of the 3 judges had Usyk winning the last 7 rounds, and I know that was a point of argument for Frank Warren, the co-promoter of Fury. But look, I mean, think about the things that you and I just said, but narrow it down even more and frame it. This guy is a mini heavyweight in the super heavyweight era. I get it. He's 6'3", but like, he is somebody who we assumed would be too small, wouldn't have the punching power, and maybe most importantly, wouldn't have the chin against the sluggers of this era. Yet, Luke, think about it. The smaller, older man giving up 55 pounds in weight, giving up legitimate gaps in every major measuring category of reach and height, brought the fight to the bigger puncher, was leading the dance, pushing the pace, controlled the center of the ring more, and that was really the central struggle between them. And oh, by the way, landed 43% of his punches and 50% of his power shots. This is perfection. This is like, go out there and throw a no-hitter against Tyson Fury. Look, I think that we can all be honest. Fury was better the second fight than the first, and there's not another heavyweight alive that is going to beat Tyson Fury, this version of him included, except for Usyk. And look at the way he executed it, or had to execute it. He had to be perfect, and he was. You can't be at punching range against somebody like Tyson Fury with that speed, IQ, and length and be able to not get hit consistently while getting off huge power shots and combinations and body shots unless you are super special and an all-time great. It's why Fury breaks the mythical scale of saying, okay, he's great, but what would he look like against Jack Johnson, Rocky Marciano, Joe Louis? He's 6'9" and just as skilled as these guys, right? Yet Usyk could bridge that gap and figure out a way to decode him. Yes, in some ways it is similar to what I mentioned, Michael Spinks moving up from light heavyweight and doing that twice to Holmes. But Fury is the ultimate heavyweight unicorn, even at 36. And Usyk exited that fight looking like he wasn't even touched, Luke. This is brilliance, what we are watching here.
Let's put up the judges' scorecards if we can here and take a look at them. These are all three of them. I'm trying to see. So you have Martinez on the left, Morley in the middle, and then Robles on the side. Robles giving one round, which was round 9 to Fury, basically since, from round 6 on, my God. And then you have Morley giving everything to Usyk from round 6 on. And then you have Martinez giving everything to Usyk from round 6 on, except round 12, which I really disagree with. I thought that was a pretty clear Usyk round.
I agree.
But nevertheless, look at that back half dominance. It's stunning when you realize everything you had said before: a significant height disadvantage, a significant weight disadvantage, a significant reach disadvantage. And once round 6 got started, basically, again, there was tight moments, and of course, some of this is debatable, but he really, truly never looked back. That is the sign of someone who has, again, the only other guy I can think of like this who could consistently do it against, in many ways, bigger guys than him. I know Mayweather, got bigger as he got older, but he wasn't the same size as Cotto. He wasn't the same size as a lot of guys. Certainly not. Well, he had drained Canelo, but you get what I'm trying to say. And then to just outbox them so cleanly down the stretch that all they could do is just sort of helplessly do their best and watch. It is truly historic, Luke, what you were watching from a guy like this.
If Usyk had tried to just outbox him from the outside, which is what we always assumed Usyk would do against these super heavyweights, I'm not sure if he has that success. He walked down the bigger man and landed the better power shots and the more efficient ones. I mean, this is, like you said, Mayweather level brilliance and dominance, Canelo level at his very prime when he was that efficient counterpuncher. This is absolutely amazing, which is why I got to call out DAZN here. While this card was paced a lot better than previous Riyadh season fight cards, even though it still took, 9-hour broadcasts, having a full British team call the fight like they did, they overly threw it, I thought, in favor of Fury. It wasn't the best look. Why is Todd Grisham, who called the first fight and has delivered such great sound bites and big moments in this era of heavyweight magic on DAZN and in Riyadh season, and why are you having Anthony Joshua be your unofficial scorer when it's obvious the business of Fury winning that rematch and potentially winning a trilogy to regain control of the division would only benefit Joshua in not having to go back through Dubois and instead cutting the line and facing Fury, who will probably fight next anyway, and it'll be a big deal, title or no title. I just feel like that came off as a weird fail and maybe helped fuel the argument that Fury was a lot closer in this fight than he actually was. I didn't love that part of it.
I didn't love that part of it, but I also want to say this outright. I want to be clear about what argument I'm making. Maybe you feel differently, but it doesn't sound like, at least on this issue, I do think Fury, in certain important respects, boxed better. You can't look at this performance, BC, and say Fury didn't learn any lessons from the first fight. I just don't see how you can look at this and say, oh, he picked up on nothing. There was no meaningful difference. He didn't try anything different. Again, all the way down to his facial appearance, which I know was some measure of controversy, his weight. We talked about his spatial awareness and ring generalship. He got bullied a little bit as the fight went on, especially in round 11. I thought he got really bullied. But in general, relative to the first fight, did a much better job about maintaining effective positioning, again, relative to the first fight in this one. However, with all of that being said, while that was a very commendable performance against a super unenviable challenge, there is no, I'm sorry, a scorecard for Tyson Fury is a fucking joke.
Yes.
It's a joke. Sorry. Take it and shove it up your ass. I don't agree with the AI judge that had, I think they gave Fury at most 2. I think that's a little on the extreme side. And then 2 of those rounds they had is like 10-10 rounds, which is also a little strange. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do think that 116, 112 is more than fair. BC had a 117, 111. Again, is that within the realm of, I think, reasonable? It is. I could see as much as 7-5 for, you can give 5-ish rounds for Tyson Fury. There is no possible way to find him 6, and there is certainly, BC, absolutely no way possible if you have even a remotely functioning mammalian brain that you can find 7 rounds for Tyson Fury. That is cope. That is fan fiction. It did not happen. Yes. Tyson Fury lost it cleanly, even if I can admit he fought an improved and admirable performance.
And let's just remind everyone, who are the people that are saying the most prominently publicly that Tyson won? Just to reiterate, it's the British broadcasting team that DAZN used. It's Anthony Joshua who was scoring the fight and wanted Fury to win. It was Eddie Hearn, who didn't have a dog in the fight, but was sitting next to who? The co-promoters of Fury, Bob Arum and Frank Warren, who also had it for Fury. So did Oscar De La Hoya, who they interviewed live in front of the arena and said he had Fury up 3 rounds at a point where most people had Usyk ahead. So I think it was the wrong people. I'm glad what you said. Usyk, the rightful winner. Luke, will we see this fight again? Will we see this series continue again, despite the 2-0 nature here of Usyk? That's a question I have. Only you can answer right now.
We're going to get to that a little bit later. That's going to be question number 3. But
oh yeah.
But in general, I this is why I like the fight, BC. We I think you found it. It wasn't a thriller. It was
a thriller. It was a technical thriller, in my opinion.
It was edge of your seat for a long time, but I can't put those scorecards up one more time. Long Island Luke, put them up if you can. I mean, it's hard for me to look at everything from round 6 on, and I understand just because someone wins all those rounds doesn't mean the rounds weren't close. In fact, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying to you, though, is amidst all of this, it is hard for me to look at scores like that. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. And then come to the conclusion that this had ebbs and flows. There were times when Fury was able to kind of wrestle back a moment, score an errant shot. Again, he had a couple good uppercuts to the body, I thought, from round 5 on, before that got taken away. But this one didn't have the up and the down and the swings. It didn't have that one for that reason, because it was just one guy setting a cross-country pace on another one. It was anticlimactic is not the word, but thriller seems a little aggressive, I think.
Well, all right. I mean, I'll argue it all day, but I was entertained by the high level skill, the
entertained. Yes, absolutely. Stakes, absolutely entertained. Yes,
meaning,
absolutely entertained.
Everything across the board. Dude, can we say anything bad about Usyk? Doesn't he seem to win every category, every conversation? He's hilarious. He's humble. He gives respect. He's a family guy. He's a man of God. He's all these things that maybe I'm looking for in an extreme athlete. What can we say negative about this guy, Luke? He's kind of stole this era in some ways. Like he's the train that keeps climbing, man. He's 37 years old. Look at the shape he was in. Heavyweights don't fight at this pace. It's just insane, man. I'm so humbled by this performance.
To me, it is always really interesting that like the very, very, very best guys I've ever seen. Now, Bud Crawford just putting Errol Spence to waste is a little bit of an exception to this. And, obviously Usyk has had some dynamic performances as well, but I don't say this has any kind of downside. I actually think it's kind of like an interesting experiment. There are guys that are much more devastating punchers, obviously, and then there are guys who are good boxers and better finishers. But the guys who have that like really generational next level skill, they're not super dynamic finishers. They're not super aggressive aggro guys, the kind of thing that you would really sort of paint as maybe your model boxer. It turns out that when you actually get in the real world, what the very best boxer looks like, he is, or she, but in this particular case, he is measured, he is thoughtful, crafty, tuned in, extremely dialed in with their fundamentals, right? But they're not necessarily hardcore punchers. They're not necessarily dynamic finishers. They're not really any of the things that we would tend to associate with being true prowess in certain respects in boxing. It's all the things that lead from here out, not from here down, so to speak, right? Kind of an interesting twist.
Yeah, I agree with you, Luke.
All right. Topic number 2. So now we have an interesting conversation to have about Usyk beyond that. Namely, where does he rank all time? So let's go through this for just a second. He was among other accolades, the 2012 Olympic gold medalist. He cleaned out cruiserweight and obviously has remained undefeated. And now heavyweight, again, the entire time hasn't lost a fight in his professional record. So BC, there are 3 ways we can ask this question. I'm going to ask them for all 3. Where does he rank all time among cruiserweights? Where does he rank all time among heavyweights? And if you can hazard a guess, and I realize the bigger that we go with this question, the harder it becomes to discern. But where does he rank all time among the best boxers ever?
Yeah, these are really hard conversations to have because it's not an apples to apples comparison. Boxing is it's weird. Maybe in some ways it's easier to compare in different eras than other sports where the rule changes so much affect what you're seeing statistically. But boxing, like, this guy's got 23 fights. How can you accurately compare that to somebody who had 114 and did so many great things and was fighting every other month? That is the hardest part to compare era wise. But let's talk this through. Even though cruiserweight has rarely been a sexy division in boxing, and many eras since its relatively recent creation, it has been kind of dead or featuring exclusively guys from other countries that we may not be in tune with at the States. I just want to point out that the cruiserweight division Usyk went through is arguably the deepest that division has ever been. And thanks to the structure of that World Boxing Super Series tournament at that time, he literally had to go through every unbeaten champion in order to acquire all the belts. So when Usyk's cruiserweight career ended with that brilliant knockout of Tony Bellew, there really was a feeling from historians that we were looking at maybe the greatest cruiserweight of all time, or if not, maybe second to Evander Holyfield. So that's first and foremost showing you what he's accomplished there. I think secondly, he's got 7 heavyweight fights. How are you going to compare in terms of greatness, in terms of accomplishments, 7 heavyweight fights to 25 heavyweight title defenses from Joe Louis, right? You just can't do it. So can I accurately and confidently put Usyk in a top 10 heavyweight frame and try to compare that perfectly? No, it is difficult, to be very fair. But the last 5 fights of this 7-fight heavyweight reign have been absolutely ridiculous. To go into 2 title fights against a unified champion in AJ, take some damage and win, close but clearly 2 tough decisions, then knock out Daniel Dubois before his own, rejuvenation to become a title holder, and then do this back-to-back at this age to Fury. Look, one thing I can say, it's obviously special and unique. The track record at heavyweight is so small that you almost have to have this discussion more in a larger scale of where does he fit in sort of pound for pound. Again, never easy to do, especially with how many belts there are these days, which can really inflate somebody's worth compared to back in the day where there was 8 divisions and 1 champion per division. But with all that long talking said, if you don't think after this fight that he's not one of the greatest fighters of all time, that if he's not in the discussion of greatest fighter this century, of this era, along with, and it really depends on how are we blocking off the eras. If we're talking about this century, then you're talking about Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, maybe Naoya Inoue when it's all said and done. And oh yeah, Usyk belongs in that category. But Luke, I think the most interesting conversation we can have about Usyk from a heavyweight ranking standpoint is simply from that mythical matchmaking point of view, or just from the point of view of pure skill. Remember, he's doing this in the super heavyweight era where, yes, we can quibble and argue and say, would this era be as competitive in the 70s or the 90s, the 2 greatest heavyweight eras of all time? I think this is the 3rd best heavyweight era of all time. Other people say, hey, man, these guys may be fun to look at and watch and they're charismatic, but I don't know about that. But you can only fight who is in your era. This era is much more difficult and deep than the one Vladimir Klitschko went through just by comparison. I think that Usyk is among the most skilled heavyweights of all time. And at 6'3", which makes him small for this era, but perfect for any other, do the mythical matchmaking in your head. He takes away everything you're good at. He fights at an incredible pace. He's got a ridiculous chin, a daring nature, fights for his country, like seems to be about the right things. Dude, you want to do any kind of mythical thing, he belongs in these conversations. We are watching all-time greatness right now. But because of the fact that he only has 23 fights and he's been on the upward build and not hanging around in one division for too long, it comes down to whether you're going to take his small sample of greatness and compare it against somebody who's done a lot more, fought more Hall of Famers. It's never going to be perfect. So, Luke, that's a long way of not giving you an answer at all. But it is a way of saying, however you want to frame it, this guy's the goods. He's of that ilk. Right?
Yeah,
he met the criteria, Isaiah Thomas. He did.
I have some specific answers. I think as you get bigger, it's a little harder to get. But let me tell you where I'm at. So one thing that you said was he's an all-time great. I think by any standard, this is inarguable. And Stephen Breadman Edwards made a point. You can debate who he would win against, who he would lose against, but he's competing against any heavyweight ever. That's a fact. That's not a fucking opinion. That's a fact. He can compete against, listen to exactly what I am saying. Oleksandr Usyk can compete and potentially beat, but certainly at a bare minimum compete against any of the top heavyweights ever. That's the kind of guy we're talking about here. Whether you think he would beat him or not, certainly we'll never know, but that's the level of skill we're talking about. As we narrow it down, cruiserweight, he is at worst the 2nd best cruiserweight of all time and arguably number 1. So he's either 1 or 2 at cruiserweight. At heavyweight, it becomes a really difficult assignment, BC, for many of the reasons that you raised. You've got guys like Ali, Lewis, Frazier, 50-plus fights, 60-plus fights, reigns over a division for long periods of time, which is in some ways I think you can appreciate. I know the fans as well, if you just think about the UFC side, having a title and holding it and then accepting all the contenders is very difficult to do over a long period of time versus I'm going to go up to one weight class. I'm going to make a short burst at it, relatively speaking. And again, that short burst he made is insanely good, but it's only a short burst. It's Chaz Witherspoon. It's was that cruiserweight or not? That was heavyweight.
No, that was a heavyweight debut. Witherspoon was a late replacement. Yeah.
It was a late replacement, and then Chisora, and then he was off to the races after that. So you get the point I'm trying to make. It's a short amount of work. So in that sense, it's a little harder to say. But I think in terms of what it does mean to beat Fury twice, what it does mean to beat Joshua twice, what it does mean to beat Dubois, 3 of the very best of this era, I think somewhere top 20, top 25 heavyweights of all time is probably a fair discussion.
Maybe even 10 to 20 if you're keeping the pound for pound angle in there, because think about what he did with a 55-pound weight disadvantage. Like, this is ridiculous. This is the definition of pound for pound.
It's true. I mean, again, he was what, 220-ish? This guy was a fucking,
281?
Right. He's essentially staying at cruiserweight for these matches and then letting the guys have these significant weight advantages. So I think somewhere in there is probably best. It's going to be hard to get him to go past the Foremans and the Alis. And honestly, even his fellow Ukrainian Klitschko, Vladimir, who held the titles and unified them for long periods of time, right? This is a very, very difficult guy to unseat based on the length and the depth of that resume. Once you get to the question of like all boxers, well, that becomes really difficult to say. So, BC, let me throw this out. We're talking every boxer ever. Where would Usyk fit? Again, hard to say, but I'm going to ask, where is he no worse than, right? No worse than top 75 all time?
Yes.
No worse, right? And maybe
Right.
even better than that.
Yes.
No, right. This is what we're talking about. Of the millions of people, look at this sort of like way in which you can understand his resume. He was the WBA cruiserweight champion, the WBC cruiserweight champion, IBF, WBO, Ring Magazine, and then he did it all again at heavyweight. And BC, something to keep in mind here, by the time he had his first real title, which was the WBO cruiserweight title, which he won in 2016, he fought a Polish opponent for it in Poland. He then fought his next fight in California. He then fought locally against Michael Hunter in Oxon Hill, Maryland. He then fought in Germany. He then fought in Latvia against Bridas.
And these are all his opponents' backyards, literally.
Right. Then he fought Gassiev, a Russian, in Moscow. Then he fought Tony Bellew in Manchester. Then he beat Chaz Witherspoon in Chicago. And again, there was some issue there with the replacement, but he beat Derek Chisora in London, Anthony Joshua in Tottenham Hotspur, which is in London. Then the neutral-ish territory of, so to speak, of Saudi Arabia. He wins there. He then goes back to the grind, BC, and beats Daniel Dubois in Poland, not Ukraine, then 2 times more in Saudi Arabia. This guy, from the moment he was fighting championship level fights, never one fucking time had hometown advantage. And in fact, most of the time was handing that over to his, in many cases, B-side opponents in certain ways. Now, of course, he was B-side certain times, but you get the idea. This guy has done all of this without any of the benefit of the trimmings that a lot of other A-sides typically enjoy, whether it's a commission familiar with them, judges that are familiar with them, again, people who are of the same nationality in the same country, in the same city. He had absolutely none of that. In BC, there was this narrative last week about Usyk, being everyone wanted Fury to win to make the trilogy. And some people might think that that's overstated or not. But here's one point I wanted to make. It's not, to me, that boxing ever conspired to like not let Usyk get to the front of the line. I don't think that's quite right. They were not hostile to him in general in that way. But what you can say, very matter-of-factly, from looking at the places where all these title fights happen among any other number of criteria, he was never the favored son.
No.
He was not the guy that boxing luminaries and power players designated as somebody that they had kind of had their eye on as, we're going to put all our eggs in our basket for this guy. We really believe in this guy. He had to take the throne of power by blood against unenviable circumstances and, in certain cases, extremely difficult opposition, all while having to do it uphill. Guys, wherever you rank him, it will be another 20 years or another 30 years before you see a guy quite this good.
Yeah, you just nailed it. And you think about not being the favored son. You think about, a lot of people didn't see his cruiserweight run. Why? Because it wasn't, for the most part, it wasn't on American television. It was like this guy was, in the shadows. But like I said, fighting killer, undefeated cruiserweight champions one after another. It's remarkable what he's done. I mean, I wonder if he was American or British, if he would be a worldwide star, way before this, because of the success in the ring, the way he carries himself, how hilarious he can be. But then on the flip side can be all about his God, family, country, be on the front lines with soldiers in Ukraine. I mean, it really is an absolutely remarkable run that I'm so happy he's finally getting the close-up for. But he also, from a business standpoint, had to navigate it deftly just the same. He had to sign with Matchroom to get in position to face Anthony Joshua for the unified crown. He had to co-promote himself with that Saudi Arabian promotion. He was the first big fighter to really do that, to get himself in line to try to get the Tyson Fury fight. Because remember, Tyson Fury kind of pushed this fight off for a little more than a year, for a long time, saying that Usyk's not a big enough name. He's small. He's this. He's a rabbit. He's all this stuff. It took a while. We thought there were periods where this fight wasn't going to happen. So whether it only happened because of Turkey or not, Usyk, the right place, the right time, the right guy for the job. You said 20, 30, 40 years. I don't know if you're ever going to see another career exactly like this. It's been brilliantly perfect, and it hasn't been selective matchmaking. It hasn't been this. It's been who's the next best in the world? Where do I have to go? Who do I have to sign with? What country do I need to fly to? And I will show you. Who cares about the size? Who cares about anything? I am Feel. Do not worry. Do not be afraid. I will not leave you alone. I mean, these are now in hindsight almost Triple G style one-liners that we as American fans, get all behind. But like in every category, quietly behind the scenes, this guy has built a dream legacy. I mean, look, is there an argument to be made historically to have him higher than the other heroes of this era, than above Mayweather, Pacquiao, and Canelo? I mean, not as many fights, not as many, pay-per-view main events and big blockbusters, not as many titles in as many divisions as those three, but perfection from start to finish.
I mean, here's the thing. You just never saw Usyk go face down like Pacquiao did when he fought Marquez. You know what I mean? Like, let me ask you, how many times has Usyk touched the canvas? Do you know? Not many, right? Got to be less than a handful.
I'm trying to think of even one here.
I'm not sure how many times he's ever touched the canvas.
I thought he had a glove touch the canvas once on the rise. I'm trying to think right here.
But
the fact that we can't figure it out is answers it, right?
Meanwhile, some of those other guys you mentioned, this is what I mean. It's like, it's hard to compare across eras. It's hard to compare across weight classes. But this guy more than anybody, and not even like, it's not even a close second. This guy reminds me of what Mayweather did times a million. Like it just, to me, he is absolutely the heir to the kind of boxing dominance, the specific strain that Mayweather was able to employ. But the difference is Mayweather got a lot of criticism, some of it unfair, some of it fair, about getting guys pre or post prime. Not like crazy post prime, but like just a little bit off.
Always advantageous. Yes.
Yes. Usyk doing the exact fucking opposite.
Yes.
Doing the exact opposite. It's insane to me what he's been able to achieve. Like, it's hard to even quantify because there's so much depth to it when you really begin to think about how he was able to use boxing's architecture to build what he's built, but having to do so, frankly, the hard way. He just was unstoppable. Quite literally, he has been unstoppable.
Do you know how hard it is to be pound for pound number one when you're a heavyweight, since the whole system was created as a way to compare non-heavyweight, essentially. And then he's holding number one at the same time that Bud Crawford and Inoue have accomplished what they have in the last 24 months. That's telling you something huge right there.
Yeah, it truly is. All right. So with that in mind, BC, it now brings up a question for topic number 3, which is, where the hell do we go from here? Now, it could be retirement for both guys. Maybe Usyk continues, maybe Fury continues. BC, before I ask you the question about where we're going to go with this, Turkey, Oleksandr, who, of course, was present for these and is obviously an architect of a lot of these fights, what he thinks, whether we like it or not, matters. And he was asked afterwards about what he thinks will be next for both guys, or at a bare minimum, what he wants to see next. And this is what he said.
Next, I want, if Dubois win in February, I want to see Usyk and Dubois again.
Again, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. And I want to see Tyson, maybe with Joshua or something. We will decide.
I was going to say, just very quickly, I just spoke to Eddie Hearn. We know that we've all, as British boxing fans, we've been desperate to see Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury.
Let's see what can happen.
Do you think it's realistic?
Everything in Riyadh season is realistic.
Absolutely.
Look, everything in Riyadh season is realistic.
Please don't behead me. Okay. BC, what will happen? What should happen? Give me the road ahead for both gentlemen.
Well, even though Daniel Dubois didn't read the room and crashed the party like an ogre and was like, give me my rematch during Usyk's sort of moment of trying to hear the translation when they're just asking him, about winning right there. His response was hilarious, doing the, how do you say Turki Al-Sheikh make this fight next? He said afterwards in the press conference that he's going to continue. He'll fight whoever Turkey wants for him. So we are setting ourselves up nicely. Daniel Dubois on February 22nd at that absolutely loaded Better BF Bivol 2 card is going to fight Joseph Parker, the former champion. It's a very legitimate fight. But if Dubois wins, and he will be favored to since he has turned himself into an absolute psychopath destroyer. I mean, just remember, if Usyk hadn't won on Saturday, cementing the fighter of the year ballot ahead of people like Inoue, Bam Rodriguez, etc., Daniel Dubois would have rightfully been your fighter of the year. So Dubois versus Usyk 2, given the controversy of the body shot, knockdown, or knockout that Dubois thought he had in the first fight, is very viable. I think it's a different fight now, given Dubois' new demeanor. He did gas out late against Usyk and got stopped, but it's a different man right now. So that'll be happening on one side of the bracket. The losers bracket is this, gift that we're going to get, and it doesn't need a title. It's Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, and whether it happens in Riyadh season in Saudi, or you put it probably where it belongs, Wembley Stadium with as many people as you can pack in there. That's obviously a sort of UK generational fight that was going to happen in some form regardless, but it's also, in my opinion, going to play a big role in terms of once Usyk gets through the winner of Dubois versus Parker, who might have next. So I don't think we're done personally with this Usyk versus Fury series. I think we get to a trilogy. I think it's completely deserved given how close Tyson Fury fought in the first two. Obviously, he would have to get through Joshua to get there, but I don't see him stepping away either, because I thought, for as much as there were elements of sour grapes to Fury not doing the post-fight interview, walking away in the tunnel as the cameras were saying, and he thought he was 3 rounds ahead. If you really listen to him in the post-fight press conference, there wasn't as much of what he did in the first fight saying, hey, fair play to Usyk, but if Ukraine wasn't in war, the judges wouldn't have scored it for him. He didn't go that range. He just said, look, I don't know what else I can do. I fought as best as I could. I trained as best as I could, and I think I won both fights. I think that stance, and the fact that there are people who believe these are so close, like Spinks versus Holmes 1 and 2, I think it gets us back to these two potentially seeing each other again. But even though this is very much nearing the end of this Renaissance heavyweight era, which did start in 2015 when Fury upset Klitschko, and we did get almost every matchup we wanted or deserved, with the exception of AJ versus Wilder. And you can always argue whether that was Al Heyman's fault for not letting Wilder at that time accept that huge offer of $100 million from DAZN for 3 fights, 2 of them against AJ. And we never got Wilder versus Usyk, but that's fine. It's not relevant anymore. We've gotten almost everything we've wanted, and now we have the promise, in my opinion, of more. Martin Bakole is still lingering. There's still a couple guys with name and known, Zhilei Zhang. I mean, we are at an exciting time right now. You saw Moses Atalma in the co-main event at just 19 years old with a big breakthrough knockout at heavyweight. Turkey loves the heavyweights. I think he understands that that's the way you get boxing back to the extreme prominence. I actually think in totality this week, Turkey gave a great performance, in my opinion. From the Ring Magazine relaunch and the gala, we didn't have any chicanery with the scoring for Fury, even though we had some questions coming in. I think all in all, heavyweight's in a great place, even with these aging legends, getting older by the day. And I think we might end up back at Usyk Fury 3. Luke, what about you?
I don't have any interest in a third fight.
Well, not tomorrow, but if they eliminate the other players, including Dubois and AJ, from, being in line to get that title, I mean, wouldn't you like to see Usyk versus Bakole one day? I mean, there's some fights to make here.
No, I don't have any interest in seeing that. None.
All right. Well, hey, Luke, what are you into then?
Okay. So then let me tell you.
Tell me about your search history, please, in depth. Yes.
It may rhyme with schmazzers. I don't know. Yes. Let's start with the other direction, because I think the more interesting conversation to me is actually not about Usyk. He could retire, BC, and we just said that he's one of the best to ever freaking do it. I mean, it's not that I don't want to see him. But I don't know. I guess I'm really different than other fight fans. Once a guy is as accomplished as Usyk, and again, we're talking about a very rare breed, but once they are as accomplished, I get diminishing returns when they keep going, especially when the really relevant hills have been conquered. That's not to say that their matchups couldn't change things, or again, Bakole's a puncher. That is something that you have to take seriously. But just given what he's accomplished, he beat the game. I mean, he truly, truly, truly beat the game. Now, the one exception to that would be Dubois. I want to circle back to that in a second. But the one that is actually interesting to me is what they do with Fury. Fury versus AJ. They missed a window, the British public, the fighters themselves, to really make that a thing before Usyk ever came along. And I think it would have been a much bigger deal, like who's the real face, not just of the heavyweight division, BC,
Yeah.
but British boxing more generally at that
Or
time.
even in all of boxing, if you're really talking.
Yeah.
It's Canelo and those two, right?
Great point. Absolutely. Like there was a window in time they could have had that. A bunch of that has been lost. Like a bunch of that has been lost. However, if you for MMA fans watching, there's a lot of nostalgia, for example, around Chuck eventually Liddell fighting Vanderlei Silva in the UFC. I have to tell you, when that fight was made, there were a lot of concerns and gripes from people that like it was a little bit past its due date. That was a fight that should have happened in Pride. That's why Chuck went over to Pride. And, now they're doing it late, and it ended up being pretty good. And now folks look back on it like it's a really historically relevant fight. I can tell you in real time that was not exactly how it was perceived. But it kind of shows you what the lesson is here, BC. Even if they've lost the window to make what AJ versus Fury could have been and maybe should have been, it's still a hot ass ticket.
Oh, hell yeah.
That is still something. I don't give a shit what stadium they want to do that in the UK. It's going to be gigantic.
And it might end in knockout either way, to be fair.
Exactly. It's competitive. It's probably going to be thrilling. Both guys are vulnerable to degrees that Usyk is simply not. It might even be, for the casual fan and even us too, a better overall fight. Surely, BC, that's the fight to make. But I want to ask this question to you. What would be the reason that wouldn't get made? Because it seems to me it's a promotional layup.
There's no reason. It will be next. Like everyone wants it. They've wanted it. They've basically been waiting for an excuse to do it. There was even a time when Fury was trying to figure out how to extend the Usyk fight even more to slide in AJ, but AJ, I think, was not at the right point at that time and maybe coming off a loss. I mean, it's always been in conversation. So it will be next. And it almost reminds me, even though it's not a perfect comparison, but to Bo Holyfield 3. Obviously, that was the third and final meeting in one of the most historic trilogies, but it was the only one that wasn't a title fight at the point where both had already been champion. There were some questions about, do they still have it? And that turned out to be one of the wildest heavyweight fights of the great 1990s, in which both were down. And, Holyfield was still battling what we thought was old age and a weak heart, but really it was hepatitis, and he would have these flushes of energy and momentum, and it was this absolute war. That's kind of inevitably what Fury and AJ at this age will be. They're both kind of wounded or vulnerable, as you mentioned. So it will be next. It's one of the biggest fights you can make still in this entire sport on the short list. You get Riyadh season and Turkey involved, and they're going to, make you that movie trailer again and hopefully put it in a massive stadium. It's going to be great. But Usyk has not sounded at all, Luke, like he wants to go away. That's the thing, though. If you take him at his word.
But then let me stay with this one for just a second, then we'll turn my attention to Usyk. What would it happen if they put that fight in Saudi Arabia? That seems like that'd be a travesty, but that's a real possibility. You can't exclude that. I don't think that they would, but one never knows. But more importantly, how bad would it be for their careers if that fight never gets made?
Yeah, it would be bad. I'm just basically trying to say there's no question that in my opinion, that it doesn't get made and doesn't get made next. It's next. It's a giant, it's happening. It's coming. It's a coming attraction, Luke. There are no impediments to it.
You don't even have the slightest concern. It would
because not only do they both want it, not only is it the biggest fight both can make next financially, but they both seem to want back in on the title picture to some degree. And they got to go through each other to do it. It's perfect. We're set up, even though it's the tail end of this era, even though we feel like we kind of know who's who in this era. Wilder's going away. Joshua's not what he once was, et cetera, et cetera. There's still some unanswered questions. We still need Dubois Usyk too. I still need to see what happens when AJ and Fury meet, but they're all going to survive and advance somebody, and we're going to have another undisputed payoff at the end. I mean, that's the allure for me in Usyk Dubois too. Not just unfinished business, but it gets us back to the undisputed level. And hopefully Uncle Turkey can fix the issues with the sanctioning bodies too, so we don't have to do stuff like this anymore.
All right, so now to the other side. I am totally cool if Usyk wants to come back and do one more with Dubois. I think that is fine. We already know the controversy of the perceived low blow, BC. Is that how you would call it? Something like that?
But it sounds like you're trying to retire this gentleman where he's not trying to retire himself.
He's not. He doesn't sound like he is. He sounds like he still has an active interest, but I cannot imagine it goes on for too much longer. Although I guess I could be wrong about that. One never knows. He's a weird dude, right? I mean, if nothing else, Usyk has always marched to the beat of his own drum. He's got his own idea about things, and whatever they have been proven correct. Let's just be very, very clear about that. My only concern is BC is like the self-assessment. Obviously, he's still good enough to be the very best that we have right now. And I think he should beat Dubois. And given that what Dubois has done against Anthony Joshua, I think the rematch is actually even more compelling. I'm all in on that. I guess I'm just trying to say, who would be an opponent after that that would be a meaningful contributor to his resume? Not like the guy wouldn't be tough or it wouldn't be, there would be some value in watching it for entertainment's sake. But you beat Dubois twice. That would make it unified. You beat Joshua twice. You beat Wilder's not eligible. Ruiz, forget about it. Like that's the game. The whole game is that. Like I don't understand.
No, I got you, but they got that 19-year-old who's coming up and making noise. You got Piccoli.
Utama? He looked awesome, by the way.
Jai Opetaia eventually is going to come up. And also there's also the possibility that Usyk may say if Opetaia continues to extend the idea that he's the best cruiserweight in the world, maybe they do that again at cruiserweight. I get what you're saying. He's not going to linger around forever and just take whoever's coming next. But there are a couple matchups left. Did you hear, by the way, during Thursday's ring gala ceremony that they ran on DAZN there, one of those British announcers saw Francis Ngannou in the crowd and was like, could we be seeing Ngannou next against Piccoli in Riyadh season hits Africa? And I'm like, who's been talking about that? Is this new? Did I miss out on that? Would you be down? Is Ngannou still in play here, Luke, in your opinion?
Yeah,
for fights like that?
Yeah. I mean, but I think Piccoli would fuck him up.
I do too. I
love Big Francis, but I don't like that fight for him at all.
I basically only want Big Francis against Deontay Wilder. That's where we're at right now. Seriously, that's where we're at. That's where it is.
People hate this idea, but I love this idea. You got to mix it up. You got to do that one in MMA gloves. I'm telling you.
Oh no, just do it in boxing. It's fine.
Why?
Wilder's washed as AF, and he doesn't seem to know it. He keeps saying that he's going to come back and win the heavyweight championship.
BC, to what extent is it a reasonable worry that Parker could beat Dubois?
It's certainly in play. Parker is rejuvenated. He is a different fighter from his initial title reign. But if the Dubois from the Ergovich fight, from the Joshua fight, from whatever fight he had to close 2023 that I'm misremembering right now, was it Zhang? Who was it? He is a new fighter. He is a destroyer right now. So I still think this Dubois is on the forward momentum to get himself back into an Usyk fight. But Luke, you got to play. You got to fight it out. Parker's got a chance in here. He's always been a smart boxer. He seems to be more offensive than he used to be. He's taking more chances. He's going after people. So this will be a very fun fight. Long Island Luke saying Jarrell Big Baby Miller. Maybe we can slow the roll on that. Okay.
Let's pull in Long Island.
That was the name. Oh, sorry. That was the name. Thank you, Long Island. That was the name he beat. Yes.
Well, we haven't talked to him once about this fight. I'd love to pull him in here.
What's up, y'all?
Let's pick your brain. First of all, you did not find any knockdowns against Usyk on his BoxRec resume?
Correct.
Dude, if he's never been knocked down with that kind of resume against those kinds of challenges, that's fucking insane, dude. Because here's the issue. Canelo's been like drilled. You know what I mean? It's a chin issue for him. Usyk, it's a chin issue. Partly, it's a skill issue that he was able to avoid that. Fucking absurd. Come back, Long Island, Luke. I'm not done with you yet.
He just left.
I'm
you.
back.
He's
I'm
like,
back. I don't like to linger while you guys are talking. You know.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, your impressions of the fight and what you want to see next.
I scored it 8-4 real time.
That's right.
I thought the first 4 rounds were pretty close. I think I had it 2-2 after 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, Usyk just way too good. What I want to see next, I agree. I think Fury Joshua is definitely the fight to make. As far as Usyk, I guess Dubois, but I think my boy Joseph Parker might come for the upset here and ruin everyone's plans. So I don't know. We'll see.
Does anybody have a huge interest in Usyk versus Parker? I'm not saying I hate it. I don't love it.
I mean,
it's a good name to have on there if he gets him. It's a good name.
Sure.
And depending on how he beats Dubois, if he knocks out Dubois, then sure.
Yeah. Okay. If he goes in there and starches Dubois, by the way, go back to the Hergovich fight. Dubois gets hit.
He does.
He gets fucking hit. You know what I mean? Like that's a real thing. So you'd have to watch out.
Give me my rematch. Oh.
Dude, he's in the middle of this incredibly triumphant moment, and then Ogre Hands just comes over and goes, "Me cookie, cookie C is for cookie." I'm like, get the fuck off screen. What are you doing? That's the thing about Dubois, dude. He builds up like all this goodwill and then spends it in the worst way imaginable.
He's kind of hilarious. His interviews are so weird. Did you see when they had him on the live broadcast? He gave nothing. They're like, "Who's going to win tonight?" I don't even know what he said. It was just words. It just, yeah.
Dude, he's a different one. Who is he signed to? Queensberry?
Yeah, Queensberry. Yep.
Frank Warren guy. All right, BC.
But it almost doesn't matter anymore. As Turkey said, Luke, in Riyadh season, there's no what do you say? Anything's possible. There's no rules.
Yeah, like just like Jesus Christ, all things are possible through Riyadh season.
Exactly. That's what yeah, exactly. Okay. Perfect comparison right there. Right?
Okay. Any other thing
strikes down on us?
Except for the AI judging, which we're going to get to in a little bit. Anything else about this fight you want to cover? Any other point you wanted to make?
No. Oh, I'll dead wrong myself. Obviously, I was wrong in playing that video earlier this week of Usyk from the first fight. I'd forgotten that they brought out the crucifix, and that's what he kissed, Luke. It wasn't a vape. It wasn't a breathing machine. Yeah, so
you fake news to me. I had never seen that before. I was like, wow, I didn't know.
I forgot that ever happened, and then I was like, oh yeah, he did. Okay, there you go. So yeah, that's all I got for you, Luke.
Okay, very good. Let's get then to topic number 4. Let's turn our attention, if we can, not to BC's Cats, but to a little bit of MMA. BC. We now have reports that have confirmed for UFC Fight Night. I don't know what the name of it will be, but it'll be on March 1st. Looks like your main event is going to be Brandon Royval taking on Manel Kopp. Royval obviously has kept his name relevant despite some setbacks, but with some great wins as well. And then Kopp most recently coming off that dramatic performance over Bruno Silva at UFC 310. Now, BC, give me A, your impressions of the fight, and B, it has to be number 1 contender, but I want to talk about what the implications of that would be if Brandon Royval wins. Your reaction?
Yeah, I think this is really good matchmaking because there is sort of a, what are you going to do next? We think it's probably Kai Kara France for the belt for Pantoja, unless you bring down Figueiredo or bring back Demetrius Johnson. The success that Pantoja has had speaks for itself, but we got to figure out who's next. I thought you could have done the Moreno versus Royval rematch. Kopp, I think, has virtuoso performance himself enough in that win over Bruno Silva to have a say in here, but maybe didn't deserve to cut the line, even though I was cheering for that because of the sort of unpredictable elements of entertainment that he brings to the table. But this is a very good style matchup in my opinion. This is going to be 5 wild rounds if it goes that long. I like that they're both going to have to go through each other to really figure out who stands alone. I see some early odds here from Long Island Luke, according to DraftKings, as you have Kopp minus 198, Royval plus 164, which is interesting, Luke Thomas. To me, that's about right. Do those odds reflect to you what we can expect when these two?
I do think those odds are accurate. Again, they're partly designed to induce betting, but Royval is more well-rounded, I think, or at least has more weapons in different dimensions beyond just striking. I think is maybe a better way to put that.
Sure.
But Kopp, I think, is quicker. I think is a better athlete. He's certainly a much better striker. We love Raw Dog on the show, but we just got to call it like we see it. So I think Kopp
can kick, though. He can kick. He can put that threat out there, okay?
And dude, he's battle tested. Like at this point, truly fucking battle tested. And so, he's seen what the mountaintop looks like. He understands what that feels like at this point. So I think between his improvements, and by the way, his striking has gotten much better. But so between that, his jiu-jitsu is leaps and bounds better than Kopp's. There's no question about that. But I think Kopp, we saw like the physicality of his speed and his use of it, and then his shot selection and his combination work. That makes him dangerous. But at the same time, dude, he's got a little bit of Ankalaev in him, where Ankalaev doesn't showboat, but Ankalaev has these periods where he's like, don't, and just makes bad decisions. Kopp is a little bit like that at times, usually servicing off of it, the fact that he can't stay focused on a task. And that leaves openings for a guy like Royval.
You're calling Manel Kopp a donk. He kind of has donk
at times. And it's not like he's a donk all the time, but like there are moments where I'm like, dude, stop doing the fucking moonwalk and finish this guy off. What are we doing here? He's doing like shadow puppets on the wall and shit. And I'm like, guys, please focus your brain and accomplish this task as best you can in an orderly and direct fashion. That leaves openings for Royval. There's absolutely no question about that in my mind. But BC, it brings up a couple of interesting situations. If Royval wins, does he get the title shot? And also, what's happening to Kai Kara France, however you want to say it. What's
France.
happening to France? What's happening to France?
I
What's
think
happening
France
to,
is getting the title shot. I think my question to you is what's happening with Brandon Moreno?
I don't know.
Somebody's going to be left out. I mean, do you think if Royval beats a streaking cop right now, that he automatically gets the shot at Pantoja? Let's not forget he lost to Pantoja twice. That
Yeah.
hurt him, but he was very competitive in that rematch. I think with some adjustments, he can certainly be right back in that. But will they grant him that, or are they just looking for him to eliminate Cop from the set? From the standings here.
Or for Cop to eliminate him, because as you
True.
indicated, Royval's sitting at 1, Moreno's sitting at 2. We don't really know what's going to happen with him. Albazi is good, but he just lost pretty thoroughly at that. Kai Kara France sitting at 4.
Do you think Volkaev's coming back? Do you think they're gonna end this sort of punishment that they gave him?
I do think he makes his way back to UFC. Yeah, I do think. Now, how quickly? I don't know. Probably this year, but it's hard to say exactly when. I would imagine third-ish quarter, something like that. But it's hard to know. Tetsuro Taira is sitting up there, but of course Royval just beat him, and then Cop is sitting at 6
in a fight of the year contender.
Yes. So those are your relevant contenders, unless Figgy comes back. So what they could do, BC, is, I mean, I don't know if they will. Are they going to do a 5th fight between Figgy and Moreno? Is that a real thing that could happen?
I think that would be poor judgment, because if you have a Figueiredo who's willing and can physically make 25 again, and he says he can, you save that for a title shot, because Pantoja is 9-0 against your current top 10 and running out of viable opponents. So I don't think that happens. Unless Moreno's going to get a 4th shot at Pantoja and we're going to see France versus Figgy. No, I don't think so, Luke.
No. Okay. So then we just have to figure out the rest of this year what's going to happen with, you know what they're going to do? I bet they're going to do Albazi versus Taira. Or maybe Taira versus, I think they're probably going to do that. That seems like a reasonable fight you could make, and that actually would be pretty fun.
We should just get Brandon Royval on Friday's show. I love the Raw Dog. That's my guy.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. We could talk to him, and then he could help us usher in the new year.
Raw Dog, if you can hear the dog whistle that we're putting out there, okay? If you can hear it,
Let me ask you, before we move on the topic, though, what does Royval need to do to the best of his ability to secure a victory here? Like, the odds makers tell us he's up against it. What can he do in your mind, to really level this out?
Oh, kicks to the body will be a big part of that, Luke. There's got to be some form, certainly, of distance control, not let Cop get in that flow in front of you of what he's doing there. But obviously, the ground as well, Luke. Do you think he will have advantages in potentially taking Cop down?
I think Cop's takedown defense looked really good recently, or at least, again, his quick down blocking. But I think if you can put Long Island Luke, if you can put sustained pressure on Cop, now you might have to take a couple big shots along the way. But we know this is going to be a 5-rounder, not a 3. If it's a 3-rounder, I really wouldn't like Royval's chances. But 5, I definitely do. If you can put sustained pressure on Cop, can you force him to make enough mistakes to win on the ground if you're Royval?
Yes. Until you guys started laying out this fight on paper, I was like, I'm actually going to take Brandon Royval here. At plus 164, I like that a lot. But
damn right.
The more you talk about it, Cop's takedown defense is really fucking good. And I don't know if Royval is going to get this fight to the ground. And like his stand-up's decent enough, but Cop looks so fucking good that I'm almost talking myself out of it as I talk about it.
Dude, when he's on, he's on. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know what to say. The thing is, you got to pressure that guy and make him make mistakes. And I think over the course of 5 rounds, Royval can do that. I do believe that.
Also, I want to give a shout out to who I called as my dark horse of the year, Asu Omabayev. He's ranked number 8. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He should get Taira, Albazi, Moreno, one of those guys.
Yes, and
Who
of course,
Kai is that guy. Have I seen that guy fight?
Yeah, he just beat Nicolau. You probably saw it, maybe, possibly.
He didn't see that shit.
I probably saw it, but I was probably like in the 8th row and scratching my my mailbag, so to speak, right?
Yeah, you're getting your mailbag ready.
Yeah, yes, I was. I was sorting out things. Yes, and okay, that's weird. Yeah, that's gross. Wow.
All right, our last and final topic. This should be a fun one here. We've got like a few things to go through. We got some MMA, some BJJ, some boxing. BC, let's go down the list here. So put up the graphic if we have it, Long Island Luke, for the Gaethje and Hooker
Now, do you want me to give you the size of my package in
Yes.
really?
So Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker have kind of hinted at a 2025 showdown. BC, is this the fight that both of them should make? And if they do, are we talking the frozen steak that was in Conor McGregor's dungarees at the Mayweather weigh-in? What are we talking about?
I mean, we could be, because the personalities and styles involved can only produce fight of the year contendership here in just an absolute violent brawl. But I'm only going to go rock solid at this news because, call me crazy, but in this great era of lightweight brawlers who have and these are elite title contending lightweight brawlers, some of them champions who have put together nothing but memorable wars. My two favorite players and my favorite fight is still Poirier Gaethje 1. Gaethje winning the rematch for the BMF by head kick. There's unfinished business here. I want that trilogy, Luke, more than I want Hooker involved or even Chandler involved. Now, obviously, I'd get involved on a Chandler Poirier rematch if that was Dustin's best option to end his career. But before I'm going to try to, break out that frozen rope, let me stay relevant, sober, rock solid, though, because this one will deliver. But I want what I want, and I want it now, Luke. Give me that. Give me that Poirier Gaethje trilogy.
I realize it's a little late in the game for this. The fight absolutely makes sense. And if you're a fight fan, this is exactly the kind of thing that you want to see. I'd be lying, BC, if I didn't feel a little bit worried about their health. A little bit worried, right? Gaethje hasn't fought since Max flatlined him and took a metric ton of abuse in his career before that. Dan Hooker has taken the kind that makes me worried about his future.
Sure.
Dude, they're going to kill each other. You know what I mean? Like there's no way that fight doesn't go some kind of deeply violent, distressing way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like I can't say no in any way that makes sense other than I'm kind of watching that one through my fingers a little bit.
Yeah, you almost hope for like an early second round finish rather than 5 crazy, insane rounds of back and forth where it looks like round 5 of Hunt versus Silva 1.
Where,
you know
what it is? Like when Poirier and Hooker, I don't remember if this is exactly the right one, but you've seen it before, where it's like the fight was incredible. They win fight of the night. And then on social media, it's both guys in their 911 hospital fucking gurneys. Yeah. And they're like high-fiving and shit. And they look like they've been mauled by a pack of wolves.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, I don't know if I want that for them a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
Well, here's the thing, Luke. You can't control them, and they're going to find just as easy another killer to open up against.
You're right.
That's what they do. And if they don't do it in the cage, they'll probably do it in a bar and down under or something. I mean, if you're talking about Hooker, I mean, this is the life that they live. It's who they are, Luke. You got to let them. Can you please let them bang?
You got to let a leopard be a leopard. You got to let a lion be a lion. You know what I'm saying?
Let me bang, bro.
Yeah. You gotta let a sex pest be a sex pest. All right. Let's jump around on this one if we can, Long Island Luke. Let's talk about the Burns and Covington back and forth. So this seems like a lot of manufactured nonsense, but basically Gilbert Burns didn't like some analysis from Chael Sonnen about him and then released his number in public, his phone number, which, by the way, can confirm that's his real number. I was texting with Chael all last week, and he confirmed me. I was like, dude, what happened there? He's like, he goes, I got to admit, Gilbert got me good. He got me good with that one. So,
Chael did a 45-minute show answering phone calls from fans. It's a brilliant way to field it.
He's so good at this. It's insane. But in any case, now it looked like Colby was like, I'm going to get back in his honor, which could just be a bunch of bullshit. So let me ask you, BC, is that a good fight to make? And even if they make it, where is your temperature on this one for two, let's say, aging but still somewhat viable welterweights?
I mean, you have to understand that I'm aging too, so I hope that I'm able.
You're AG1.
I'm AG1 over here. I hope I'm able to still produce a frozen rope on call, Luke. But no, there's one word to describe this: flaccid, dude. I don't want anything to do with this. Ooh. I don't want to see Colby again in a big fight. I saw those excuses he made. I was on the campaign trail for Trump, and I know.
I know. Like dude, he's the deputy. He's the deputy director of national security policy. Like, get the fuck out of here.
You know what I'd rather see for Gilbert? The kind of fights that Gaethje and Hooker are trying to make with each other at this point. You know what I mean? Like, there's still something.
Well, hold on. Okay, old guy and Burns, who I think is still viable, but certainly he's closer to 40 than 30, and I think Colby's probably washed, but he's asking for a full camp. They're both in that area
Nah,
Old
I don't
guy
want it.
versus old guy. I gotta tell you, like it's something. I don't. Why are you so
What's
against
left
that?
to get entertained by Colby? I'm not going to be entertained by if he gets knocked out flatline. I don't want to see him anymore. I'm done. You know?
Long Island Luke, you were going
I
to
just
chime in?
wanted to pop in to say that the top 7 and 8, if you include the champion, are all kind of like should be matched up against each other, and then that kind of leaves Gilbert Colby on the outskirts. So the fight does make sense from a matchmaking standpoint, but I
I'd rather
understand if
see
you don't want to
Gilbert
see
and Kamaru again, even though they're trying to fashion Usman into a really big fight. I mean, I'm not into
Yeah,
this.
which I don't really get. Everyone's like, "Oh, Usman's still viable." I'm like, I think you're going to find out in the next fight that he's not.
Dude, he's lost 3 in a row. He hasn't fought a welterweight
I
in like
know.
5 years. What are we doing here?
I know. I can't believe that. I mean, again, I still think he's like not a pushover. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't like people like, oh, he could, make another run. I'm like, no, that's
No.
not happening at
Stop
all.
it.
No.
Stop it.
I got to tell you, I don't need to see Colby again, but Gilbert wants it. It's 2 old guys. Again, old guys.
So what's your level right now? You're rock solid for this?
No.
What's wrong with you?
No, but like, well, what would be the middle ground? I don't know, morning wood or something. I don't know what the hell would be.
If you've got a big let me search it, I guess. You know what I mean?
If they make it, I'm not against it at all. I am totally okay with it. You seem to have much less interest.
I do. I don't see it on your list, but did you hear about Bobby Nux over there, Robert Whitaker?
He might go to 205.
A man after your own matchmaking heart is trying to make the biggest and best fight you can make against John Jones at 205. No, he's saying that he's more likely to move up to light heavyweight than he ever would be to go back down to welterweight. That's really what he's saying.
Yeah, I know. I didn't bring it up, but because I saw it, it was kind of funny. But
that's great. That's great. Yeah.
But he's right. I mean, dude, it was hard for him to make 170 at the time in which he moved, much less now.
I can't believe he got sunned twice. I mean, it happened to 2 very good fighters, but that guy, if one little thing changes, he could be fighting for a title again and be your champion again. I mean, is it over, Luke? Not over in the fact that he can't be competitive against good fighters, but is Robert Whitaker never going to put that belt back around his waist?
Yeah, that's over. It's over.
I don't want to live in a world where that's the reality.
The fight game is, dude, I don't have to tell you this. It's unforgiving. It's unforgiving. Unforgiving.
That
All right.
guy's an all-time great, Luke. A living legend.
Couple more notes. Let's go to the AI scorecard if we can, Long Island Luke. Let's put this on the screen. So this was very vaunted. Here is the scorecard, the AI scorecard, such as you want to call it that. They had it 118 to 112. If you'll note, rounds 1 and 12 were 10-10. Upon rewatch, I could entertain the idea round 1 was 10-10. I don't think that's correct. I definitely don't think 10-10 for a 12th round is correct. The right guy won, BC, but your impressions of all of this, my preamble noting that I think this is largely not useful technology aside. What do you think?
I mean, look, no one's putting a gun to my head or offering me a check to say this, but I apologize for assuming, given the history of chicanery in this sport, that Turki Al-Ashik's aggressiveness in terms of saying, look, Fury's my brother. I look at him like family. I want him to win. But Turki ultimately said right before the fight, he's picking Usyk. I thought Usyk won. My scorecard's pretty damn close to the AI. I thought it was hilarious when Tyson at the press conference was like, fuck computers.
Fuck computers. Which, by the way, fair enough. Fuck computers. Yeah. I'm okay with that.
We're going to go to war one day with them, Luke. So I'm on Tyson Fury's side in this war. I'll have to say the AI guy wasn't wrong, I guess. So do I want this involved in a trending direction toward becoming part of our sport? No. But if it's some independent thing of saying, well, look, the computer scored it, it reminds me of that scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when they're trying to enter into the computer the exact whereabouts of the remaining golden ticket. And he's like, you can now tell the computer exactly where he can shove his lifetime supply of chocolate. Am I the only one that knows every word from that movie and still thinks it's one of the best 5 films ever made, Luke? Or am I alone in this bet?
Is Gene Wilder dead? Because otherwise it's you.
Wow. Okay, Luke. Thank you, Grandpa Joe. Why don't you defraud your family out of money for years and then miraculously just get up and we get free chocolate? Let's hit it.
Here's my read on it. It was inoffensively worthless. Like, I don't really understood what it gave to us. I mean, one thing I mentioned before, there was no demo about it. we didn't get to see the technology in any way beforehand. It wasn't explained to us how it worked. I mean, I realized they read talking points, but they didn't actually show us this. And the folks at Jabber were even kind of distancing themselves from the very version that this fight was using, saying like our full technology is not even being applied here. This is something a little bit different. So like even the people who make this stuff, this was not even the full breadth and depth of what they do. And in the end, you got a scorecard that's not like totally insane, but it's like, what are we adding here to this? I saw people being like, yeah, a little more training and it would have had 8-4. I'm like, right. What is the goal with this? Is the goal to be just as good as a normal judge? Like, we don't need AI to be what a normal judge does. We need it to fix judging problems. And if the best that you can hope for is that it can match existing performance, you're not changing anything. And by the way, you can't even do that with this right now. Like, again, I want to be clear. Is there a world in the future, BC, where we could get to a place that technology could meaningfully do it? Especially, again, not so much in MMA, but in boxing where you have a constrained universe of rules. I mean, you can't even back fist punch in boxing, right? You can only punch with the front and then the top of the glove. You can't do it on the blade of the hand. You can't spin around and do stuff like that. It's a very, you have to punch above the waist. You can't punch behind on someone's back. It's a very constrained universe of rules. And you can see the reason why I got 118, 110 is because their proprietary system, which builds stats, it's based, it weighs the performance of statistics in predicting score. But like, how useful is this? If you watch in BC, there's a video that Jabber put out, and again, I'm going to speak to them at the end of the week. I think that their stats work is really good. I really like their stats, and I can be persuaded over time that this is something that could lead to an improvement in judging down the road. I want to be very clear. Like, I like Jabber a lot, and I like what they do a lot. I cannot overstate that. But this was a bastardized version of that was never demoed and never tested. It didn't meaningfully add anything.
I mean, look, if it said 115, 113 Fury, we'd be like, get this off the earth and we never want to see it again. But can it account punching power? Because judges have to take into account the effects of punches. That's why you can win rounds landing 4 shots if your opponent landed 15, if you landed the meaningful shots that moved him. How can a computer figure that part out, Luke?
So they do motion tracking, and they say that their motion tracking can tell them that. I don't know how true that is.
Exiting. What if you're moving with a punch and exiting?
This is so true. This is what I mean. If you look at the video that Jabber put out over the weekend, they put out something on their YouTube channel, and they showed about that I think we may have called. I don't remember this, but it was Michael Fox, and he spells it Mykal. I think he's out of my area. I'm not going to be wrong about that. Taking on Gabriel Maestre, the Venezuelan guy. And if you'll recall, Maestre won in like an insane fucking robbery. And they showed how their proprietary software would have given it to Fox. And it's like, okay, so then what you're saying in this particular instance is it could solve the problem of like egregious, like fucked up scorecards, like the ones that you can't even comprehend. Okay, that's a valuable service. That's not nothing. And in fact, Michael Fox would probably tell you he would welcome something like that. But how is that useful for at this current stage for something where you have to have a keen eye for an Oleksandr Usyk, where what do the body shots do and how is that changing things? And, you know, again, all of the different ways in which you have to use human judgment to make an evaluation of this. I know people complain about boxing judging, and if AI gets rid of the worst version of it, that's not nothing.
I don't trust the computers. I mean, Luke, I can put an Apple Watch right now and do this for a few minutes and they'll be like, oh, you ran 2 miles. No, I busted a pair of nuts. Okay. That's the only thing that happened, right? That's it. Okay. Okay. Hey, Red Fox, you okay over there? Yeah.
Wow, that was a lot for me to visually kind of wrap my head around there. And now I need to take a shower.
Gene Wilder died in 2016 at the age of 83.
Good. He missed all the bad stuff. Okay. Last but not least, BC. Last but not least, CJI2. Craig Jones, who, by the way, reached out to me last week. Hopefully we can get him back in studio first quarter of the new year. Looking forward to that being a thing. They're going to do it again. CJI 2 will take place in August of 2025. And this time it's going to have a team's concept. We have a bit of an announcement video. Let's roll it here.
Guys, grappling is boring. Stalling is boring. People being afraid to be submitted is boring. For CJI 2, we're mixing this up. We're going to do 8 teams battling for $1 million. Last time we found out who the 2 best athletes in the world were. That was Kate Rotolo and Nikki Rod. And we paid them both $1 million. Now we're going to find out who is the best team in the world. Atos, New Wave, B Team, Checkmat, Gracie Barra, 10th Planet, whatever teams. And let's see who truly is the best team in the world. Quintet style, last man standing. Team versus team is the most exciting form of grappling. And that's what is going to be the bulk of this show. But we're also going to have a few crazy super fights. I won't be fighting a woman this time, although the guy has many feminine attributes. But that is yet to be announced. CJI 2, team versus team.
BC, your reaction?
I mean, I love Craig. I think he's hilarious. I would love to have him on MK again to promote this. But you got to talk me into team grappling, Luke. I don't love grappling to begin with. I understand that Craig sweetened up the entertainment value the first time around, brought legitimate money to the table, and is changing the game. And oh, by the way, everything he did leading up to that matchup with Gabby Garcia was extreme elite comedy across the board. I'm interested to see who he's going to be his super fight against. But tell me why the team concept is going to be the rage here and why I should care. I don't care about team NFL or team MMA or regular season PFL, Luke. Why should I care about this?
So again, they're not making an entire season about it. They're making a 2-day event about it. I think that's really kind of important. Again, I could imagine teams working in MMA if structured right, depending on the rule set, but for a short one-off event, which is that's what this is. It's a one-off event. He mentioned they're going to use the quintet rule. So by the way, they're not just like drafting like 5 randos, calling it a team. New Wave is the Danaher team. B Team is a real team. Atos, Checkmat, Gracie Baja. These are all real teams that exist. And here's how quintet works. Quote, quintet is about survival and submission until only one team is left. One athlete from each team starts no matter their size. Whoever wins by submission stays on the mat, meaning one grappler could take out an entire team by themselves.
That's like a gauntlet match in WWE, yeah.
That's right. And dude, he's actually been posting like what's it called where like they send one guy out every like minute or whatever?
Royal Rumble. He's been posting stuff like that. Okay, this is brilliant. Craig's a brilliant man.
This is what I mean. Dude, yeah. I'm like super all in on this.
Okay. I mean, he's a brilliant man. This is exciting. He's finding ways to take something and add spicy elements to it to get us all involved. Everyone's getting paid. Everyone's laughing. And at the end of the day, he's going to spend the next 3 weeks after the event with cocaine and hookers. So really, short of getting to finally smell what Keith Peterson smells like, this is great, Luke. I'd love
he went to Cartagena, Colombia, a place I've been to for a million times after the last CJI. And I saw all the places he was visiting, conspicuously with like Luke Rockhold and other guys, like with wealth on their bodies. And they had an armed escort at all times. And I was like, yeah, you that was right. That was the right call. You made the right call. All right. With that out of the way, those are our top 5 topics. Let's get to where the fans get to ask us questions. It's time for DMs from Donks.
Wow. Is that donkey's name Ron Jeremy, Luke?
I need an adult every time I hear that fucking thing. All right. From Appy Fatathon. Oh, God.
That's David Appleton.
Yeah. With the next card not planned for a few weeks, do you think the UFC are missing a trick with the Christmas and New Year enthusiasm for sports in general? BC, you recall, it's all over my Netflix. They're going to do the NFL and all that stuff there. People have said there's like a window here. Why not do it? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword here because they go almost every week, right? There's like 2 or 3 weeks, it seems like, during the regular year where you're like, oh my God, no fight night this week. Even though I'm inevitably complaining about the apex and the matchmaking, we still want it. We still need it. So to give their athletes, their employees, look, dude, I love the people that work for the UFC, to be fair. We can have, quibbles with things that Dana says or decision making by the TKO, but
Good people. They're good
there's
people.
some incredible people in PR and beyond, right? To see them get almost like a month off, it's like the only off season they get. I certainly understand it. This is typically the dead zone for combat sports anyway. But to your point, I mean, look at what they've been doing for years in Japan with Saki Karaba and making that New Year's Eve cards just, what'd you say? Saki Karaba? Saki Kabara? Saki Kabara.
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Sorry, I was trying to get that off. All right, there we go. I mean, he was telling me, Luke, when I talked to him at that press conference, that they're going to have, 3 events on New Year's Day alone there in Saitama. So I do think there's an opportunity there, but you'd have to sort of figure out, like, are we a 52-week-a-year operation? Because they're trending toward that.
I cannot believe people like are complaining about this. I've seen people do like daily memes about like the UFC break, and it's like, first of all, if you have Fight Pass, I know this is going to be hard for some people to hear. Good MMA took place before 2020, like really good MMA. Like you have a universe of WEC, Strikeforce, UFC, Pride that I am certain the vast majority of people complaining about not having live events haven't seen. And in fact, many of those events would be far better than UFC, Apex, Shart, 379. Okay, let's just be very clear about that. Second of all, do something else with your fucking life. That's my plea to everybody. Read a book, do some sit-ups, eat a fruit cup, go for a walk, do something else such that you're not utterly dependent, especially if you're a degenerate gambler. Hashtag Long Island Luke. Go diversify your interest in life so that you are not dependent on one single thing as the source of both your entertainment and, frankly, at this point, your personality. This is the most meaningless thing to me ever. Do something else. And I make money from them having events.
Are you speaking to Appy right now?
I'm speaking to everybody complaining that they're not live UFC events. You're completely right, BC, that the employees there work their balls off. They need some time off. This is a great time to get it. And there's a million other things people could be doing with their time that would enrich their lives. They do not need to have constant fucking titillation like a strobe light at a
like
rave.
Titillation, to be fair.
No,
Luke, I've always been more of
everybody does. But I'm saying the strobe light of just in your face all the time. Take a break. Go to the bathroom, do something else. You're going to be okay.
Did you see UFC got Ice Cube to play their holiday party? That's pretty badass. Reminds me of being at ESPN in the 06 area where the money was overflowing. They had Chaka Khan at the Christmas party, Luke. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're a monopoly, you can just afford to do whatever. I saw Dana White talking about his office and like all the nice things he has there. I'm like, yeah, if you don't pay guys, 50%, this is what you can afford.
Luke, it's the holiday season. We're letting, the sins of the past, fade away.
We're not. All right. Question number 2 from Flannels and Jits. Where does Usyk rank as the best heavyweight of all time? What is next for Fury and Usyk? We literally did this one, so I hope they got the good answer for that. Okay.
Wow. Okay. It looks like move on with your life, please.
Well, I mean, we just did we did this one.
I got a new one for you.
Okay.
Because CJI got me thinking. And I was thinking back to that season of Tough, Black Zillions versus ATT. If GFL or any of these other team combat leagues were doing gym versus, let's say they had ATT versus Fighting Nerds versus City Kickboxing, would that make you guys more interested in it? Would that be...
No, it wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't change anything. No.
It's better than arbitrary Team Florida versus Team New York, and none of the guys
reason
are from
that
those places.
CJI might work where GFL can't work is CJI will have some of the very best grapplers in the world going up against some of the other very best grapplers in the world under a very novel rule and surface set. So you actually have super meaningful jiu-jitsu happening between people that are well-known and celebrated, like the Ruotolos versus Andrew Tackett, that kind of a thing. This is washed guy versus washed guy for the most part. It doesn't solve the central problem. You can do other things to make it different, but it doesn't actually it doesn't solve their problems.
All right, it doesn't solve it, but it does make it better. You would agree with that, right?
Sort of.
Yeah. All right.
Sort of.
Thanks.
All right. From Telvin Kipapa.
Yeah,
Best
Hawaii's
Christmas.
on, Luke. Love that guy, right?
Yeah. Best Christmas present you ever gave someone? That's a good question, man.
Luke, I'm not a great tipper or gift giver, but I'm a lover, Luke. Probably not a great lover either, but I'm a lover, Luke. Have I given great gifts before?
I'd have to ask my wife. I don't know the answer as to that. I mean, I feel like I do pretty well with this, but I'm not sure if there's like one that truly, like, I've never gotten my wife a car or something like that, you know?
I've never given someone a gift that's like talked about for years to come, where it's like a landmark turning point in their gift receiving lifetime or something.
Yeah.
I put a roof over people's heads, Luke, and I put food on the table. Okay, so leave me alone. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I've definitely gotten some good ones before. I feel like I don't really ever struggle with this. But I don't know if there is like one that's like unbelievable relative to some of the other ones. I mean, the most recent one I got that was good was, like the vacuum, that the Dyson
Yes.
mixed vacuums.
Yes.
If you actually, so there's a Dyson store in Tyson's Corner, which is just outside DC, but there's probably many of them across the country. And if you go to these places, you can buy their vacuums there, but Dyson actually specializes in like all of this like jet technology, and they use it for a series of different appliances. They made a hair dryer for women that, I don't know anything about. I've never used a hair dryer in my life. My hair is not like that. I don't need it. But it was a little on the expensive side as far as hair dryers go, but apparently it was like revolutionary technology.
Wow.
And I got my wife that, and here's why that's relevant. Here's why it's relevant. She has like raved about how good it is. It has reduced her time to get ready by like 50%.
Oh, so
like,
everybody wins in the house. Yes.
bingo. And like, she's happy, we're happy, everyone's happy. I don't know. I feel like that's a win all the way around. You know what I mean?
Now, do you do this in your house? I know this because I don't buy a lot of the gifts that are given out at my house because I have a wonderful wife, but I wrap most of them. I was wrapping multiple gifts per dog and cat in my house.
God, you're a fucking loser. I mean, that's just
You don't love your animals that much. I mean, these dogs get so stinking excited for Christmas.
You see, if you saw the vet bill that I just had to pay for Barbas, I don't think you'd accuse me of not loving him. I think that'd be something you would never ever accuse me.
You're
of.
like, I'll put food on the table and a roof over that dog's head.
Yeah.
Deal with it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not wrapping a fucking bone for him. I mean, I'd just be honest with you. I'm not doing that shit.
I'm willing to wrap gifts for Reggie Jackson because that guy is currently in life clinging to my soul, Luke.
And your nipples.
At times, yes. At times he's hanging on for dear life there. Yes.
All right. Question number 4 from Mike. I'm going to say this the best I can. Hirnishin, something like that, 1995. Happy holidays, guys. What are some fights with UFC and boxing you would ask Combat Santa for in your stocking? Like pick 3 or so that you would like really recommend to folks.
Okay. It's just that we haven't seen yet, right? Fights to make in both sports kind of thing, right? Right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In 25, I really, 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 and not everybody agrees with this, but I really still want Tank Davis against Shakur Stevenson at 135.
Love it.
Shakur saying that his plans are to end this calendar year coming up with that. I really, really want to see, even though you disagree with me, Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. I really, really want to see that. That takes me to, from flaccid to rock solid to, oh my gosh, that guy, we thought he was fatter than he was. We assumed he didn't have a respectable pipe. We were wrong, right? We were dead wrong. It doesn't have to be Friday. We were dead wrong in our assumption whether that guy brought any form or level of girth to the table, Luke. Turns out I did.
God, you're disgusting. All right, my turn. It's got to be Tom Aspinall, John Jones. No question about it. I have come around much more aggressively now in the last 2 weeks to Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. Really hope we get that made.
Turkey really wants that for me.
I don't see eye to eye on him and everything, but I really hope he can get that one made. So that's the second. And then I'm going to go a little bit to the side. It can't really happen unless something crazy happens, but Dakota Ditcheva versus Valentina Shevchenko, I think would be awesome. Awesome, awesome fight. Would love to see it.
That's interesting. I'm thinking more, what other creative matchups are out there? I mean, are you getting sized at it's angling toward it that the winner of Beterbiev Bivol will face the winner of David Benavidez versus David Morrell?
That'd be another huge one. I mean, in fact, the fact that they made Benavidez Morrell already kind of solves one of the ones I did want to see. But yeah, I'd be in favor of that. I mean, again, let's see how they look. If both guys kind of end up looking like, but if the winner really has a strong performance, I would be totally okay with that.
Would Bam versus the Monster move you on that level, or just be like an interesting thing?
Say that again.
Bam versus Inoue. Would that be
Ooh.
like an attraction destination fight for you, or just, hey, something cool and creative? Let's see what it looks like.
Yeah, more cool and creative because of the size, or what I think is the size difference. I'm not sure how big it would actually be, but seems like it'd be cool. Yeah. All right. And then last but not least, BC, from Oso Aldaco. What are some of your Christmas traditions that you guys do at home, BC?
I thought it was a ridiculous tradition when we started it as newlyweds randomly one Christmas Eve, but it's caught on. And everyone makes Christmas story jokes because they had to do that on Christmas Day, of course, because the Bumpus hounds got into the house and got into the turkey. But Christmas Eve as a family, we get Asian takeout, typically Thai food, and we get a whole lot of it. And that's a big tradition in this house, and I love it, Luke.
So we've started one where we go to an Italian restaurant for Christmas Eve.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
instead of cooking, and I'm gonna get ossobuco, which is one of my favorite things to eat when done correctly, obviously.
Sure.
We do the Christmas. I don't know what the proper terms are. I can only say what my mom told me what the terms are. The Christmas crackers, where you pull them apart and it pops, and there's like a little toy in the middle.
Oh, I never heard of that. That sounds cool.
I do that too. I don't know what they're called either, but we do that too.
Yeah, so that's a fun little tradition.
Yes.
So my wife is obviously Catholic, and we do Christmas Eve gifts. Now we won't do that for the Tukser. We'll do that after Santa gets here. She might be listening. So, but for everybody else, we'll do it on Christmas Eve. And we have a couple things where like we go see the national tree and stuff like that.
That's great.
Yeah.
We do. Even though my kids are 16, they still love it. We do one gift on Christmas Eve, and it's always the Christmas pajamas.
Oh, okay.
That you would
then Christmas pajamas.
Yeah, but then you would put them on, sleep in them, and wake up and open your presents wearing.
Yes, very cool. Okay, yeah, stuff like that. Long Island Luke, you got any traditions that your family does besides hitting the bong? Yeah. Besides using a Pepsi can to hit a bong.
No, a Pepsi can. What are we in fucking 7th grade? No. My mom's Italian. She makes lasagna for every holiday, especially
nice.
Christmas. So that's like the big. I look forward.
What does your dad do on Christmas? That's like real Aussie.
Starts drinking beer at 10 a.m. I mean,
is that a Foster's? It's Australian for beer.
No, he does get Foster's sometimes, but he's a big. What does he drink? Newcastle Brown Ale, which is not Australian, but that's kind of like the closest.
Where does your dad live?
Long Island.
Okay, your parents are together, right? You're not divorced.
Yeah.
How many times are you out with your dad and someone's like, "Are you from England?" or like, "Are you from Scotland?" Like, how many times do they wager and they get it wrong?
Oh, well, I will say every time we're out with him, they have to bring up, "Oh my God, where are you from?" But I will say 9 times out of 10, they actually say Australia.
They get it right? Okay.
Yeah.
I figured those Long Island.
Can we ever get this guy on the show and ask him inappropriate questions about Down Under?
He knows like zero about technology, so probably not. But yeah, we can make it
Same
happen.
success I've had in trying to get Luke's dad or brother.
It'll never happen. Yeah, you might as well. You'll get Satan on here before you get there.
Wow. Sometimes you gotta show up, Luke. Yeah.
BC, with that in mind, it's time for your feces.
Yeah. So I scoured the globe and I put together some funny clips that I hope makes Luke laugh. This one's called "Have You Seen This Ish, Biatch?" Luke, hoo-ah. Yeah, it's the holiday season, Luke, which means it's always better to give than receive.
Want your presents early?
It's okay. Sure.
That's my kind of Santa right there.
Oh, good. Luke, have you ever brought this to the table on Christmas dinner? It could change the way your family celebrates. You know what I mean? Oh boy, that's a bowl of joints, Luke. All right, Grandma loves it. Yeah,
that's me on Christmas.
And look, he's wearing the raw
rolling papers. Yes,
rolling papers for the sweater. That's sick.
Great stuff. Luke, your ugly Christmas sweater of the week time.
Jesus Christ, you won.
I tell you what, buddy, redneck ingenuity powers this country.
It really does.
Powers
at this point,
country.
Yes, we better buy in. Let's go over to the Bills Mafia, see what they're up to, Luke.
All of them should get paralyzed. I hate every single one of them.
Look at what they're doing to Patrick Mahomes. It's not good.
Okay, I take that back. Those guys, those guys are great.
They also groom their children young, Luke. I'm not necessarily talking about Pat Barry's coaching style. Watch this.
All right, I'm going to toss her up and catch her and drop her in. Ready, Mandy?
Yeah, go Bills.
That kid is gonna grow up with like lead poisoning and all kinds of shit with a family like that. I mean, it's gonna be the worst life ever.
Luke, you may remember when my train, or I tried to take that bus home from MK in NYC that time, and I ended up
just the dumbest decision you've ever made. That's all.
And among many things, including the driver taking the longest possible way to get there, then getting on the highway in the wrong direction as we're like Boston, 60 miles away coming up. We then got into Hartford and got the bus caught under a bridge around the corner, like just low clearance, low class, unbelievable. Here's another great moments in low clearance history. Wow.
Wait, does anyone speak German? What did that thing say?
I don't know, but I think he was declared dead shortly after, which would probably make it the fourth death we've now shown in the history of this show. Luke, do you remember when you got your diploma at graduation? Did you do anything crazy like the DX chop or,
I screamed. Yeah, I did scream actually.
All right, watch this man's decision. He's going to live, Luke. He's going to live.
Not everyone deserves to go to college. They should have revoked his diploma right there.
Luke, it's time for MMA fighters in the wild. And here's Roman Dolidze checking in from the nation of Georgia.
This is my homeland. I'm in Georgia. And look what I found. Guys, I don't teach you what and how to do, but I'm against this. I always think that clear brain is very important. Think twice before starting using stuff like this. Any kind of stuff like this, I'm against.
Well, Luke, he's not my least favorite fighter.
What the fuck was he talking about?
He found a gravity bong there that somebody had made out of a water jug and a 2-liter soda. Just some ingenuity out there in Georgia, right?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell if he was just against littering,
No, he was against the use of that. But Luke, he is connected to one of our favorite fighters, so I guess we can't turn on him completely, right?
Who?
Cheyenne, Luke.
Oh, that's your favorite.
Okay.
That's your favorite.
Let's go over to this MMA fighter in the wild. That's Khamzat Chimaev. And Luke, I continually play videos and he can get down. Look at this guy. Do you think chicks adore this? Look at the moves.
A certain kind, perhaps.
So if I learned those steps, would I, clean up in theory, Luke?
I think for the kind of person you'd be looking for, this could do you some good. It wouldn't really help me much.
All right. Okay. Luke Stipe was elected dog pound captain by the Cleveland Browns. Check this out.
Yeah. That team sucks balls.
All right. There's a guitar, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Is he strong enough to still smash it?
Let's see if he can do the honky tonk man bit.
Oh, yeah. Okay. He's still got at least a little bit of that left.
I'm sure his family is enjoying the John Jones paycheck this holiday season.
Yeah, I bet they are.
Speaking
also,
of John Jones,
that franchise is godforsaken, and they deserve every bad thing that happens to them. So there's
that. Speaking of John Jones, Luke, not a big NBA fan, it turns out.
I just went to the New York Knicks game this weekend, last Friday night, and was it Friday night? I think it was Thursday night. Last Thursday night, New York Knicks was playing against the Buffalo Bills. Not Buffalo Bills, but the Buffalo Bulls.
Buffalo Bulls, Luke. There you go. There it is. Yes. Okay. All right.
New York Knicks against the Buffalo Bulls. That's you talking about Premier League soccer. You're like, yeah, isn't Hazyborough playing Shibblesworth?
Exactly. Luke, speaking of Boney, if you've ever wondered whether he's packing heat, Dana confirmed it to TMZ.
So you would be shocked if this was the last time we saw John in an octagon tomorrow night.
I wouldn't be shocked if he said, I retire tomorrow night. That wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, he's earned it. I mean, the guy's 37, 38 years old now. He's beat everybody. He's never lost. 16 years, the youngest heavyweight champion of all time, right?
Luke, the hungest champion of all, the most well-hung champion of all time. He is the GOAT.
That is, listen, that is a certain form of royalty in this world.
Luke, I don't know if your wife have confirmed that this is correct, but did you hear about the new pronunciation for Aljamain Sterling's first name? Teddy Atlas shares it.
And you also have Sterling, Aljamain Sterling.
Close, Teddy. Very close. All right.
Dude, he's out there naming dinosaurs. Allosaurus, Velociraptor. Yes.
Yeah. Luke, have you ever gotten high with your grandma before?
No, I cannot say that I have.
What could go wrong? Let's watch.
Hurry up. I don't want your mom to see.
You ready?
Yeah.
Sweet Jesus.
Oh, give me that.
Hey. Right now, unlock this fucking door and trying to burn down my fucking house. What is that smell? Where's my mother? Where's not? The fuck did you do to her? Anthony!
Oh.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Oh.
Dude, surely there is somebody in the MK universe that can get me a hairdryer and then do that to me, what that guy just did to his grandma. Like,
I think it's possible.
Just send me to the next realm of existence, please.
Shout out to that guy who showed up to our 3 Margaritas show with that little container of brownies. Luke, did you not shake that?
I think after the day that I had, probably brownies was not the best idea.
Okay, let's go to Karate Combat. Rafael Alves delivered this insane capoeira kick KO. Luke, watch this.
Some of those violent rotations. Rafael Alves with the capoeira kick to the head, looking for the early finish.
Or maybe it wasn't a finish, but that was great.
That's insane. He was the guy that also knocked out James Vick. You'll recall that, the one who sent James Vick to the land of wind and ghosts. Like, dude, maybe he wasn't the best fighter, but that dude is athletic as fuck.
Luke, are you subscribed to Shab's other channel, Eat Fast, Get Gas? Well, let's watch this clip.
I'm gonna show you something else. Watch this.
Oh my God! Can you eat pussy like that?
You know what? It's a relevant question.
Yeah.
It's a relevant question. It's a relevant.
Look, you ever hear that song? This store is on fire.
This house, this girl.
Let's watch this. All right, that guy seems angry.
Oh, what the fuck?
I mean, what happened there, Luke?
Everyone was kind of nonchalant. He's just setting shit on fire like the Joker in the hospital scene.
Yeah. All right, pick a number, Luke, on this next one. Any number.
I just want you to pick one of these numbers. And whichever number you pick, that's the prize you'll be getting. Go ahead. 3. Are you sure?
Yes.
You can change your mind.
3.
This one?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You got a hug.
She got lucky, Luke.
That is awesome. That's a good bit. That was a good bit.
All right. Check out this bad timed photo bomb.
The Illinois State Fair is taking place right now in Springfield, Illinois. If you've ever wondered what a 1,000-pound cow looks like up close and in person, this is the place to come. Also, maybe if you wondered.
Tough break for that poor young woman. Wow. All right. Luke, it's time for your hat of the week. You down with this?
That's a great lifestyle. That's a great lifestyle.
All right. Yeah, it is. I've lived it a long time. All right, Luke, we don't have elder abuse this week. We do have child abuse. Let's watch this. Oh,
what the fuck?
Some sweet chin music right there.
Dude, look at this. She comes flying out. Bah, hold that.
Wow. A young Ditcheva right there. Wow.
And look at the smile on her face. That's a self-satisfied abuser.
Look, you ever see when they show old commercials from our youth and we're like, man, life was just different back then, right?
That's true, yes.
Check out this one.
I'm not John Elway, but I'm gonna smash John Elway's record with the new Vortex Mega Flight. A new record!
I mean, that was a little aggressive, but that was the 90s, Luke, right? Wow.
Foreshadowing the 2000s in a very unusual way.
I remember that commercial so well too.
Yeah, I don't remember it ending like that. Let's go over to this this kid, Luke. I don't like him.
What is your aim in life? What would you love to be doing in, say, 10 years' time? Have you thought about it? Because I know you love history, right? You love history?
Driving planes in buildings.
Driving what?
Driving planes into skyscrapers.
Right, well, let's say that's not a career option. What else would you like to do?
Move to Iraq and become a terrorist.
Okay, that is somebody get a handle on that kid. Wow. All right.
The online world will radicalize these kids, you know?
No doubt about it. Finally, Luke, you can do it for the gram. You may die in the process, though.
Get the fuck out of the road. Get the fuck out of the road, you idiot. Oh, yep. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, my God. Oh, wow.
You know what? That's just, I mean, there is, BC, I never know if there's a God. It's really hard to know, but then I see this and I think God loves us all. You know,
wow, that's street justice right there. That's all the shit I got this week, Luke. I hope you saw it.
That was great. That was great. All right. Well, thank you to everyone who watched today. Hey, happy holidays to all of you. Merry Christmas. We will be back on Friday. We'll have a live show on Friday. I don't know what the fuck we're going to do. So I think we're going to do
what are we going to do?
You want to do, let's do this.
Let's get Raw Dog out here. All right.
We'll get Raw Dog out here. Let's put up the Gmail address one more time if we can. morningcombat@gmail.com. morningcombat@gmail.com. Send us some emails. Let's do like a end of 2024 kind of thing, because the reality is we can't do our year-end awards until the following Monday, BC, because that's the last day of the year before the end of the year.
Sure.
So we'll do like a bit of a grab bag, whatever else you guys want to get to. morningcombat@gmail.com. Hit us up. Let us know what's going on, and we'll have a good time.
All right. I like that idea. And you know, happy holidays out there. I mean, happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas. It's a great time, Luke, to press pause on the life, to put the phone down and focus on the blessings you have in front of you. Wife, kids, animals, parents, nephews, cousins, neighbors. Get out there and touch somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, just legally. Yeah.
Hey, guess who's here, Luke? Guess who's here? Guess who made it?
Look at that puss.
Hey, buddy. Yeah.
Is he yelling at you?
He is yelling at me. He's very vocal. He knows, he really lives his whole life only focused on him. It's a remarkable existence.
That's every cat.
Yeah, but specifically this guy,
Yeah, I want him to bite your fucking face.
No way. He's in a good mood right now. Let's let him stay. Okay. It's a great guy.
Listen, happy holidays to you. Happy holidays to Long Island Luke, everybody who works on the show. No texting and driving, no drinking and driving. Let's all be safe. And let's reconvene, obviously, on Friday after all the holiday festivities, and we'll get ready to close out 2024. All right.
There it is. Whoop, there it is, Luke.
Okay, you can follow us there on all our socials. Again, one more time, morningcombat@gmail.com to contact the show and send us some stuff for a holiday mailbag edition. But we're done. For Long Island Luke, for Reggie Jackson the Cat, for Brian Campbell, I'm Luke Thomas. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, may all of your gains be loyal.